when you were trying to learn all of these languages, one of the big things that a lot of people have, number one, as soon as they want to learn a new language, they get motivated. They get 3 days in, maybe 4 days in, I don't know, a week in, and you hit a wall. Everybody who's ever tried to do anything is going to hit a wall at a certain point where progress doesn't come as quick. Uh, what are the biggest commonalities you've seen for people that have actually that you've seen over the, I mean, you said what, maybe 4 or 5 years of people who started out as beginners and now have success in Italian studies, essentially, that they can more or less, they're conversationally fluent in the language. Is there anything that you could pick out from the students that have succeeded, as opposed to the ones who just are like, I'm going to learn Italian, and then you talk to them 5 years later and they're like, they're still at point one? What's the difference?
Well, first of all, a lot of motivation. That's key. But then I would say uh, comprehensible input.
Yeah.
That, I mean, like people who know what comprehensible input is, and learn with the so-called natural method, natural approach, whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
Just listening
Yeah.
to a lot of stuff, reading a lot, like you said. I mean, those people are going to be much better. Uh, are going to become much better than people who
Sorry
just
to
rely
sorry to
on
interrupt.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, because you said that, and I know, I just want to clarify for people. Yeah, the natural method, the natural approach is the one that we're talking about, which is this comprehensible input type
Right.
thing. So I'm sure in order to separate the other ways that people are learning, it's essentially no grammar at all, a little bit of grammar, or what's the,
Yeah.
that's just,
Well, I
if
think
you
it
could
really
touch on that.
depends. Everybody comes from a different background in terms of what's their native language, which languages they have learned already. So, like for someone who might be a Spanish speaker, it's going to be much easier for them to just understand Italian naturally without any grammar at all. For someone who maybe is a Russian speaker, it might be a little bit harder at first. So, a little bit of grammar might help. I do think that learning the grammar helps a little bit. It shouldn't be your main focus. But then, I mean, it really depends on what you like doing in a language. At the end of the day, you have to have fun. And that's probably, if I had to find one rule, is you have to enjoy the process. If you don't like what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you're trying to do something that has worked for someone else. If you don't like the process, then it's not going to work. Like if you don't like doing Anki, doing flashcards, then you should probably not do it. It's not that because it works for some people that it's going to be great for you if you just hate it. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, like, the message that I think we have to kind of push forward is that grammar is not as important and shouldn't be the main focus, um, as it's kind of um, promoted in school. Like we go to school, we only do grammar. That's basically the only thing we work on most of the time. Um, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that grammar is useless. Of course, I think it has its place in language learning, um, but it shouldn't be the main focus. I think then some people work on it more, some people less, some people like it a lot, some people don't. I think grammar is very useful when you want to be accurate in when you're speaking. Because I mean, certain things you're just gonna get right because, not because, as you said, you know the language subconsciously, but other things, they're kind of hard to get right just automatically. You know what I mean? Just mm, using your intuition, if that makes sense. So I think it's useful to know the language, kind of to do a little bit of explicit learning, if that makes sense, to do a little bit of intentional learning of rules. But yeah, you shouldn't go overboard with that.
So when you were learning, let's say more than one language, and stuff that you learned from Luca, um, maintaining languages is a challenging thing. I mean, for people that are interested in, maybe they're beginners and they're on to their second language, let's say, uh, or they want to learn more than one language. Generally speaking, if I remember right, also I can definitely, I've known about Luca for years now as well. And generally, some of these tremendous polyglots do not recommend learning two languages at once if you're a beginner. And then if you do decide to learn a language, generally speaking, it's as a beginner good to have languages that are incredibly separate. A Slavic language and Chinese, or something that doesn't get crisscrossed. I mean, if you don't speak Spanish and Italian and you decide to study Spanish, you're gonna have a lot of commonalities, a lot of mixing, a lot of words that are sometimes the same, and it kind of gets in your way. So, how did you maintain studying of a language, and how do you maintain any of the languages? I know you said you're not as focused on it, but how do you maintain any of that now?
I mean, I don't really worry about maintaining my languages that much, to be honest. Like, I know that my comprehension is not going away. Like, I would say, once you get to, let's say, a B1 level in a language, you're not gonna forget. You're not gonna lose that skill. Like, once you sort of reach a critical mass of comprehension skills, that's not going away. Um, um it's the speaking that's the problematic thing, because if you don't do any speaking, it's gonna get worse. You're gonna get rusty. But to be honest, I don't really worry about having to maintain my speaking skills. When I know that I'm going to be using a language, maybe I'm going to travel to a country, I'm just going to do a little bit more speaking. It's going to come back, and I don't worry about it too much. I mean, there are people who are crazy about maintaining all of their languages, especially if they're crazy, like amazing polyglots who speak 15 languages. I know you know a bunch of languages, so probably that's something that's something that you have to that you struggle with, or maybe you have to find a way to maintain all of those languages. But to be honest, I don't really worry about it that much. I think I know uh, I know for a fact that if I if I'm going to speak for a couple of days, the language is slowly going to come back. And
Yeah, that's so true, though. I mean, because you can be what you like you said, rusty speaking, and you're right. Like, I have a decent number of languages to maintain, but there is just something about it. Like, once you land in the country, or once you start to have those conversations, within a very short period of time, uh, everything starts firing and shooting back to you. So you don't really lose it. That's something that they also don't really explain to you. It's true. If you never use a language and you never hear the language, for sure it will take you a little bit of time. But the amount of time that it takes you, it's not like learning a whole language over again. That's absolutely false. You basically just like you get on the bike and you start riding it and like, I remember how to do this, and it all just kind of comes piling in.
yeah, also the comprehension is not going away unless your comprehension isn't that good. Let's say if you reach an A2 level, you can lose that A2 level. So you kind of need to have a core understanding of the language, if you know what I mean. So you need to be good enough after you sort of have an intermediate level in the language. You're not going to lose your comprehension. Like, for instance, I'm not working on my Russian anymore at this point, but I was learning Russian very intensely in the past. I can still understand everything without a problem. It's not like I'm losing my comprehension. The speaking skills, yeah, I'm definitely a little bit more rusty, but I know that if I'm going to speak for a couple of days with Russian speakers, it's going to come back. So